So I want to talk about something that I feel like hasn't been getting a lot of conversation, especially around like the general population. So this video might take a day or 5 to get posted, but today, as of the recording of this, is May 31st, 2023. Today was my last day of employment and the last day of operations technically for Iowa Wesleyan University, which is really kind of surreal to say. For those of you that don't know, Iowa Wesleyan University is where I went to school. It's where I got both my undergrad and my graduate degree. It's also where I've been working for the past few years, both as a marketing coordinator and as an adjunct English instructor. The school closure has definitely a lot of personal and emotional components. But it's also a bit shocking, considering how historical this university is. So just a little bit of background. Iowa Wesleyan was founded in 1842, so 181 years ago, and it actually predates the state of Iowa. So it was originally called the Mount Pleasant Literary Institute, later changed to the Mount Pleasant Collegiate Institute, then later changed to Iowa Wesleyan University, then Iowa Wesleyan College, and then back to Iowa Wesleyan University. This is the campus where Belle Van Mansfield got her degree. This is the town where she passed the bar and became the first female lawyer. This is where James Harlan made his home for quite a bit of his life. He served as president twice. He spent time in DC with Abraham Lincoln, while Abraham Lincoln himself probably never came to campus. His children did. They literally lived on campus for a while. Peggy Whitson, who literally just came back to Earth not more than a day or two ago, she graduated from here. There's a lot of really notable alumni throughout the ages that really made their mark on the world. That is not really what this video is for. And honestly, Iowa Wesleyan University itself is not what this video is for. Because the thing is, Iowa Wesleyan University is just one school in a pattern of especially private liberal arts universities that are just not, for one reason or another, they're just not able to continue operation primarily due to financial constraints. This year alone, I know of, I want to say 5 different private universities, nonprofit universities that have or will shortly be ceasing operation. And what's interesting is there's a lot of narrative about how the price of tuition keeps on increasing, which I agree is absolutely an issue, but I think there's also a lot of discourse that needs to happen with how expensive it is to operate a university. Truly feel like there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of assumptions about how much money there is in working for a university and where that tuition money actually goes. Because the first thing that people assume is that the board of trustees makes loads of money and that's where all of the money that the university should have had went to. There's an assumption that the people that work at universities get these really cushy jobs that they get paid tons of money for, which is also not true. Especially in the nonprofit sector, nobody was getting paid that much. If you count my teaching contracts, I was making maybe slightly more than $40,000 a year. The thing with people who work in education, especially nonprofit universities, it's not all about the money. Obviously, a paycheck is important because money is akin to oxygen. But I can guarantee you that any of the universities that have closed this year, nobody was working there with the goal of getting rich. But the other interesting thing is the reason Iowa Wesleyan kind of called it quits. We had a debt with the USDA. Note that that is the United States Department of Agriculture. It would make a lot more sense if it was like the Department of Education or even a department with a particular field that was taught heavily at this school. But it wasn't. It was the USDA. There's something that is greatly lost when a school like Wesleyan shuts down. Not just for the people that worked here or the people that went to school here, Because honestly, there are other jobs out there in the world, there are other schools out there in the world. But for the community, to look specifically at Iowa Wesleyan, it was the most diverse campus in the state of Iowa. It created an opportunity for people in the area to get to know and meet and experience people from other cultures, which for some people who maybe are never able to really leave the area, who maybe don't get the opportunity to travel, that is huge. Also, to look at Iowa Wesleyan specifically, the economic impact of the school being here was in the tens of millions of dollars. And that's not to say that the community is just going to collapse because the school disappeared. Honestly, right now, nobody really knows what's going to happen next. But to get back to the USDA giving money to schools, there's a reason why it's the USDA. See, for a lot of people in these sort of rural areas, it's hard to even think about going to college. College not only takes a lot of time, but it's also a financial drain, and for many people, it's difficult, if not impossible, to leave home to go to school. So to have these little institutions just sort of scattered around rural areas is super important for these populations that maybe can't move, maybe can't leave their families. Especially like farm kids that commute to school and then go back home and work on the farm, or maybe go to school and work a job to help support their family. Those are the families that I am honestly most concerned for, because with the loss of these small institutions, they are not going to viably be able to go and get an education and all of the perks that go along with an education. And I think that's something that gets looked over a lot. I just think about the student population that we had here and how over 50% of the domestic student body was first generation, meaning their parents did not go to university. For those students in particular, it is especially challenging to go to school. One, because there is this stigma around being a first gen, but also circumstances often make it especially challenging for a first gen to go to school, not just because they're first gen, but because of the circumstances that made them a first gen student. Because generally those families are lower income to begin with, and generally those families don't understand how to navigate college because they never had to deal with it before. The other thing that I keep on hearing about college is that it doesn't adapt to the real world. And I really struggle with that sentiment. For one, because more and more universities are bringing in actual practitioners, people that have worked in the industry, to be teachers and instructors and curriculum developers. That's not to say that that's the case everywhere and all of the time and for every division, but I definitely saw it a lot. But to speak specifically for Wesleyan, there was a lot of movement in terms of what curriculum was being offered and a lot of examination of, especially locally, what is needed in the community. What are local employers looking for, and how can, as an institution, we prepare our students to enter the local workforce? What skills are needed right now? But also, to speak more directly of my own education here, there was a huge emphasis in being able to go out and find new information and to be able to learn new skills, to be able to adapt. So even as the workplace changes, the skills are there to be able to adapt and develop new skills. Honestly, I was an English major, and while it's been a hot minute since I've had to do any kind of analytical breakdown of James Joyce's Ulysses, the concepts of critical thinking and problem solving and being stubborn enough to keep on going with something that is really annoying and challenging has led me to not only continue to create videos, but make better videos, explore a lot of other areas of crafting and art, and to be able to teach, not to mention all of the writing that I did in a whole bunch of different styles, using a whole bunch of different voices. I don't know, when I sat down to record this, I felt like I had like a solid idea of what I wanted to say, but I really still don't. Like, I've known that this day was coming for over 2 months now, and this day just still feels kind of surreal, and it feels like this is not something that should be happening. So yeah, I feel like I've been rambling for a while. I feel like I've been sad for a long time, and I feel like I don't know what it feels like to not have this sort of looming sadness. There's definitely a degree to which it feels like a death. So yeah, that's my life right now. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye.